everyone, this is Pegg Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be my non-spoiler review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And you can check out my reviews of previous Mission Impossible movies within the franchise, and I'll leave some links within the channel. So we go then to Dead Reckoning Part 1, which was released internationally on July the 10th, 2023. It has Tom Cruise once more in the lead role as IMF agent Ethan Hunt, alongside mainstay cast members Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames, Rebecca Ferguson and Vanessa Kirby, and we also have new additions with Hayley Atwell, Porm Klementieff, Esai Morales, and the movie was once more directed by Christopher McQuarrie. It is of course the 7th entry in the ever successful franchise, which is a big budget movie adaptation of the classic 60s spy television series created by Bruce Geller. Now the story of Dead Reckoning catches up once more with IMF agent Ethan Hunt, this time assigned to deal with a huge global threat in the form of a sentient artificial intelligence known as the Entity, which intends to gain control of the world's defences and intelligence networks. Now the key to gaining control of the Entity lies within two halves of a golden key, that when joined together gives you the location of where the Entity is based. Fully aware of the dangers of falling into the wrong hands, the IMF team decide that the Entity must be destroyed. And over the course of the story they come across various individuals who want the key for their own devices. This includes professional thief Grace, of which Ethan is working with the most. We have government agents Jasper Briggs and Vegas, who are constantly on the hunt for Ethan. And we have the mysterious Gabriel, who seems to have a strong connection to the Entity, as well as a past history with Ethan before he joined the IMF. And once more we have black market arms broker Elena Mostopoulos, who wants to obtain and sell the key to the highest bidder. What follows is an epic chase of many twists and turns as the IMF tries to prevent the Entity from being manipulated into controlling the world. Now there's been so much hype and excitement over Dead Reckoning Part 1 following the super popular previous entry within the franchise Mission Impossible Fallout in 2018, Tom Cruise's continued revered status as a supposed last A-list movie star and his commitment to his craft, and the overall continued disappointments of summer blockbusters so far within 2023. We ask the question, is Dead Reckoning the shining diamond out of the rough that will save the movie box office? When in terms of an individual movie, it is a high quality, well crafted blockbuster, full of many twists and turns to keep you engaged, alongside a high octane pace and stunts and spectacle to match. Now there are however some issues that bring the movie down, preventing it from being a truly great action adventure that it clearly aspires to be. And if there was one phrase to sum up the problems within this film, it would be overextended. For all of the high quality on display, this is a movie that clearly overreaches and at times excesses too much. Never to the point of frustration, but it definitely lessens the overall level of satisfaction. When looking at the film's runtime of around 2 hours and 40 minutes, there's easily at least a 25 to 30 minutes that can be completely cut out, and it would have improved even more the pacing and the urgency of the story. Now whilst I was always engaged in the plot, there were times where they could have cut to the chase a lot quicker. This is simplified none more so than the extended car chase sequence in Rome, as what was showcased within the trailers, where we see Ethan and Grace going into various vehicles trying to escape pursuing antagonists. Now the sequence starts off fine and again is very well staged, but then it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, to the stage where you want the sequence to end just so you can get back to the overall story. And this goes the same for what for me were probably the best moments of the film, where the characters are together, very confused and trying to figure out exactly what the Entity is. Christopher McQuarrie uses multiple Dutch angles to create an urgency amongst the lengthy exposition, and for a large part it works. But there are times when the engagement does waver as we spend so much time talking about the Entity, and it's almost as if you're banging the viewer over the head with the overall explanations. And whilst it's good to keep the audience, and films of course should always have a lengthy amount of dialogue in order to explain the story and work on characterization, it shouldn't just be action every 2 minutes. And yes, there is a certain suspense and intrigue as you're constantly trying to figure out who is working for who and whose side are they actually on. But the exposition gets slightly convoluted, especially in the latter stages. And this also leads us to the main threat itself. Without spoiling, never fully convinces, as does the role of Esai Morales, Gabriel, which sadly is a bit one note. Now they start off this character very well when they try to establish the personal connection to Ethan and his backstory, and this makes him a potentially interesting character. But any compelling element is lost once the movie gets caught up in the whole persona of the Entity. I also look at the huge cast of characters this time round and ask whether a certain amount actually needed to be involved in the story. Now, despite all of that criticism, there's still plenty to praise here. As mentioned before, the movie as an overall product is superbly put together, the cinematography is great, and much like Fallout, everything is shot with a real scale and poise and sophistication, much more on a grounded level this time. But as opposed to Fallout, I think aesthetically, Dead Reckoning has a lot more colours and vibrancy and composition. And despite the overextension, the action itself is very clean and crisp, once more, for the most part, not using CGI, actually shot on real locations, which just lends an authenticity and physicality again that draws you more to the action. And yes, the movie at times can very much excel in terms of the action. And this is when we talk about the climactic train sequence. We've all seen it from the trailers, that thrilling shot where we see Ethan driving off a cliff trying to catch up to the train, a fantastically staged climactic act involving a battle on the roof of a train. Very much evoking the finale of the first Mission Impossible film from 1996, but with even more nail-biting tension, and it's very exciting to watch, undeniably. Now, in terms of the cast, they're all as competent as ever. Tom Cruise once more is as reliable as Ethan Hunt. His whole movie presence and insistence on doing his own stunts, his overall screen aura, is still as consistent. Now, there is potential at the beginning to gain a far more insight into Ethan Hunt as a character. As I mentioned before, we tried to look into his backstory of how exactly he joined the IMF, and they drawed his personal connection with Gabriel. But again, the movie sadly does away with that intrigue in the second half as Ethan Hunt shifts once more into the overall action superhero. Now, in terms of the supporting cast, Simon Pegg, Ving Rhames and Rebecca Ferguson are fine as always. Though they do remain much more on the periphery of events this time, where we do see the focus shift a lot more on Ethan and Grace. And there are times where we look at their roles and they seem to be just a repeat of what they've done in previous films. And again, I did question if all of them were necessary to this overall movie. But without question, the star attraction here is Hayley Atwell as Grace. Completely smart, full of resolve, but not 100% fully Mary Sue, as what's often the case where we see with female characters nowadays. She also has a vulnerability here and a mystery as she thinks she's all out for herself, yet she has a strange loyalty to Ethan as we get to the later stages of the film. Hayley Atwell has a very good chemistry with Tom Cruise, and their dynamic is probably the most dominant throughout the film, which, as I mentioned before, probably comes at the expense of other characters, which I'll probably expand upon this more in my spoiler review. But Hayley Atwell is great here. She's stunning, sexy, naturally beautiful and physically active, and she really should be a much more prolific and successful leading actress in Hollywood. Absolutely fantastic to watch. And to be honest, all of the other actresses involved, they look absolutely great. I will say that Porm Klementieff is not utilised as well, but Vanessa Kirby is far more involved, especially when we get to the final third of the film. But overall, all actresses make a very good impression on screen. So if I had to give an overall score for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, I would give it a 7.2 out of 10. It certainly is the best of what's been a very lacklustre summer blockbuster season. But is it the best Mission Impossible movie? Definitely no. I'd say it's not as good as Fallout, it's definitely not as good as Rogue Nation, and I'd even say that the third movie, directed by J.J. Abrams from 2006, is also superior. But Dead Reckoning Part 1 still remains a superbly crafted, thrilling action adventure. It's just let down by an over-excessiveness that mostly would have been fixed with a trimmed down runtime, and this would have made for an even better, satisfactory movie. But overall, there's plenty to be savoured here, and I'm very much looking forward to see what will be offered in Dead Reckoning Part 2. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings and non-spoiler review of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Where do you think it ranks amongst the Mission Impossible franchise? And as I mentioned before, you can check out previous reviews of the Mission Impossible films on this channel, and I will be shortly uploading a spoiler review where I'll go into far more depth into the elements as what I felt worked well and what didn't work quite as well within the movie. So look up for all of that great content within the channel. And if you have any other further suggestions regarding any other movies, television series, or any other topics of the entertainment genre that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on this subject matter within the future. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.